the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Madam President, the regular reports from the International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals to the Security Council is one of the subjects which divert the Council's attention from genuinely important items on its agenda. Today's meeting should have served as a platform for the discussion of practical issues related to the closure of the mechanism, which has already concluded its judicial and prosecutorial functions. Instead of this, time and again, these meetings are being used to demonstrate the fact that even today, where the United Nations is beset by a financial crisis, where there are proposals for significant cuts, the mechanism, which is no longer relevant, is proposed to remain unchanged, with a staff of 234 positions and a budget of $61 million. Let us recall that the mechanism was established 15 years ago by the Council as a small, purely temporary structure with a small number of staff. This language is enshrined in the specialized resolution dating 2010. Let us look for a comparison. For example, the International Maritime Organization has 300 international staff. The International Court of Justice, the principal judicial body of the United Nations, which has more than 20 cases on its docket, in addition to advisory opinions, has approximately 100 staff. And at the same time, nobody has ever decided that the above-mentioned organizations shall be small or temporary. And in this way, the mechanism, the residual mechanism, providing reports to the Council is simply making a mockery of the instructions from the body which established it. We would like to note that 234 positions at the residual mechanism is not an exhaustive list. There's a strange postscript in the report about this figure not including a number of positions, including staff who are engaging with the Office of Internal Oversight Services. In this way, we do not have a full knowledge of how many staff the mechanism has. This is a blatant intent to mislead the Security Council. We do not agree with this state of affairs against the backdrop of the liquidity crisis plaguing the United Nations and the initiative of the Secretary General for a 20% cut in personnel and budget in all, and I stress, active, not residual areas of work of the United Nations. A temporary and residual structure needs to close in order to free up resources for priority objectives of the United Nations, first and foremost, the maintenance of international peace and security. This is easily achieved. There's a need for the Council to take a decision to distribute among current UN departments and member states the small number of residual functions which the mechanism itself has been carrying out exceedingly poorly. The report of the prosecutor has similar proposals which warrant close consideration, and we would note separately the recognition that the function for victim and witness protection has de facto been handed over to states, and we have long been discussing this. We expect greater details and specifics about this in the next report. However, the President's report does not even have a hint. Not even a hint about concrete options for handover functions, not even a hint of an intention either to conclude the work in principle. Instead, it is proposed that council members extend the existence of the mechanism in order to carry out supervision functions for the enforcement of sentences that is up until the period after 2040. This is not an acceptable approach, especially against the backdrop of the utter inability of the mechanism to carry out these monitoring functions. Enforcement states, such as the United Kingdom and Estonia, continue to disregard even the United Nations standard minimum rules for the treatment of Serb prisoners. These are the so-called Nelson Mandela rules. They are barred from visiting and meeting with relatives or lawyers. The visas are not being granted for such purposes. They are prevented from using the telephone, from using the internet. Their banking accounts and transactions are being blocked. They are not being provided with adequate medical assistance. Applications for early release following the serving out of 2/3 of their sentences are being denied, and they are being targeted by acts of psychological and physical violence. We have specific examples that we will share with you. For example, the 79-year-old Radovan Karadzic, who is serving out a sentence in the territory of the United Kingdom. For 4 years, he has not been visited by his family, and they have been systematically denied entry visas. The payment of fees for the services of a lawyer who has a license to work in the United Kingdom is also something that the British authorities have denied. And so Mr. Karadzic has been stripped of any ties to the outside world, and his right to defense has been denied, and this is being done in order to continue to violate his rights with impunity. The prisoner is suffering from diabetes, and yet he does not receive a special diet that is appropriate for his condition. He has been stripped of access to vital medications. As a result, his health, the state of his health, is continuously deteriorating. Given the advanced age and the serious condition of this Serb, the penitentiary administration, under the pretext of allegedly his preparing to flee, has been imposed so-called enhanced security measures against Mr. Karadzic. These measures essentially constitute torture. In his cell, the light is constantly on, including during nighttime. And let's recall that forced sleep deprivation through the use of electricity, electrical light, or sound is torture. We have drawn the attention of the mechanism to the situation half a year ago. We called upon the mechanism to fulfill its oversight functions and monitoring functions and to visit the prison. This, however, was not done. The president of the court generally trusts the word of London. If London says that they are not committing any violations, then there is no need to verify. There are continuous violations of the rights of Milan Lukic, who is serving out a sentence in Estonia, who filed an appeal to the mechanism, and these appeals were denied. And moreover, in April of this year, another convicted person, Radislav Kristic, who will be brought over to Estonia to serve out a sentence. Mr. Kristic survived an attack by fellow prisoners in a British prison, and his leg was amputated. What is noteworthy is, as we are aware, both of these imprisoned persons are being held in Estonian prison in Tartu, where there are plans to bring 600 convicted persons from Sweden under a bilateral agreement. It appears that Estonia has decided to make a name for itself as the prison capital of the world. Local rights defenders are sounding the alarm. Will such a large number of prisoners massed together not impact the conditions of their serving out the sentences? For whether or not the mechanism is aware of this problem, this remains unknown because nothing is mentioned about this in the report, and this is how the oversight and supervision functions are being carried out. Let us turn now to what is taking place at the UN Detention Unit in The Hague, which is under the direct oversight of the residual mechanism. The Serb General Ratko Mladic, who is serving out a sentence there, is virtually immobile. He is suffering as a result of heart and kidney issues, the swelling of the heel bone, infected bed sores. He has lost a body weight of 51 kilograms. The bed sores, and I do need to stress this, is an indication of a lack of basic normal care. There's a high risk of heart failure, thrombosis and embolism, as well as sepsis as a result of the bed sores. The medical personnel do not speak Serbian, and they are unable to provide day-to-day care nor timely medical assistance. According to the data that we've received from his relatives, treatment in his current condition is also at present virtually impossible. He effectively requires palliative care, which is not being provided to him. According to Mr. Mladic's SIN, since September 2024, medical personnel have urgently insisted that he consent to a do not resuscitate order in the event of a threat to his life, and apparently they are now alleging that the general consented to this. His relatives, given the dementia that has been diagnosed for Mr. Mladic, they believe that medical personnel are exploiting his vulnerable condition. In light of the above mentioned, we believe that it is highly inhumane that the president of the mechanism in 2024 decided to deny the application for his early release on humanitarian grounds, or to provide opportunity for him to serve out the remainder of his sentence in Serbia. That too was denied. This approach stands in stark contrast with the treatment of Mr. Kabuga, whose case was indefinitely suspended due to the state of his health. We demand that the mechanism immediately reconsider the decision about Mr. Mladic and transfer the general to Serbia to serve out the remainder of his sentence. Let us stress that all responsibility for any possible negative developments will be borne by the mechanism and the president thereof. The convicted persons were sentenced to imprisonment, not to death after many years of torture under the oversight of the United Nations. Against this backdrop, the only option that can guarantee the very basic rights of Serbian prisoners is their expeditious handover to the state of their citizenship to serve out the remainder of their sentences. And for the remaining functions, this is precisely the most realistic option. We call upon the leadership of the mechanism in the next report to the Council, as well as with the report of the UN Secretary General, to provide the corresponding detailed, practical, and feasible proposals for the handover of all residual functions that will make it possible to completely wrap up its operations. There is no need to include in the report already options that have already been rejected. These include the establishment of the so-called omnibus residual mechanism for all ad hoc tribunals, or the handover of cases to the so-called International Criminal Court. We wish once again to caution against attempts to artificially extend the lifespan of this structure by initiating new so-called contempt of court cases. Madam President, the mechanism is a successor of the infamous ICTY, which entered into history with its iniquitous approaches, its double standards, and its politicization. In March, we were surprised to learn that in the United Kingdom, one of the judges of the mechanism received a criminal conviction, convicted to 6 years, 4 months imprisonment for engaging in the practice of modern-day slavery. And we would note separately that informing the Council about such issues post facto, after everything has already transpired, is not only an exceedingly unprofessional approach by the residual mechanism, but this also constitutes the deliberate cover-up of the complicity of a judge in crimes. On the whole, the situation only reflects the fact that the mechanism's claims to some kind of a legacy and lofty standards have no leg to stand on. It should be clear to all members of the Security Council that the mechanism can no longer continue to exist, and it needs to be shuttered. Thank you.
I thank